Hi, I'm Tamar. I live in the Boston area, and this is Etsy Shop Audits.
We just discovered that shirt, 90s retro, a tattoo. Like, who would have thought? Maybe you're going to design a tattoo that's popular and put it on a shirt. All right, welcome, Tamar. So here is everything that you gave me as far as the intake. And from there, we're going to go ahead and drill in. So shop name, just Tamar. Shop age, 10 months old. The niche, not sure. Sticking point, not sure of the niche. And total revenue, $364. And then income goal was $5,000 per month is going to be your target.
Yep.
So does that sound about everything right that I put in here that you would put in your intake?
Yep. Well, my total revenue is now $380. I have since sold something.
I will take that. I will take that. All right. Awesome. Okay. So sticking point, the niche, like let's kind of dig in there a little bit. It's 10 months old. And I think like right now, and I did take a peek, but we're going to go ahead and we're going to pull it up and kind of go through it. I'd like to know what is, I guess, do you even have a customer in mind of who you're bringing in, or is it more of a shop that you're just kind of putting things in there and seeing what's going to sell?
I envision myself as the customer. Like, these are things that I would buy.
Okay.
I don't know how that would translate into an audience.
Okay.
I don't know how many of me there are.
Okay. Okay. All right. So I guess as far as like for you then, what are things that are like are these things that are interesting to you, or are these things that you're like you would search for?
Well, it all started with I'm a graphic designer by trade.
Okay.
And I was doing some graphic design, like clip art background files.
Mm-hmm.
And one of them I thought would look really cool on a pair of combat boots. And so I found a vendor that did combat boots, and I put them on it, and I thought that's really cool. And I thought it could go on a dress. And I mean, it really started out very organically in the sense that I was doing something else and I thought, wow, this would look really cool as that.
Mm-hmm.
Then life happened and whatever. Mm-hmm. And I ended up painting. I started doing a lot of painting, and drawing and more fine art as opposed to digital art.
Okay.
And I thought that would lend itself well to certain products, not necessarily the same ones that I thought that I started with. And so I put those on there. And I think my shop is very ADHD, as am I.
Okay.
It really, like, I look at the shop and I think this makes no sense to the world, but it makes sense to me.
Okay.
And I think that's where I really need help.
Okay. Okay. Well, you've come to the right place, because that's something that we definitely, and you've probably already realized that by watching any of these or just watching any of our content, we have to have a direction.
Yep.
And it's easy to kind of go down that road of like, oh, well, I created this one thing, so I think everyone will like it, right? It's like one of those things. And it's like, but are people searching for it, or is it set up to be found? Right.
Right.
That's the big thing. And I think that's the hard thing for artists a lot of times to think about. I mean, we just did one a few weeks back, Art by Flynn, and she's got a studio where she's like on the beach, and like she's got a great shop, and people walk by and they go into the shop and they explore. But it's different than if you're on Etsy. People aren't just walking by your shop and going like, oh, cool, you do nice artwork, let me take a stroll in, right? So it's a different mindset. And what we have to do here is we have to really understand that it's a search engine for people that are looking for things, right? And so that's really what we have to understand. Once we understand that, which I believe you do, now we have to start creating these different pieces that will allow people to find your shop. And then when they find your shop, now it's a matter of converting them into a customer, and hopefully you have more than one thing to sell them that's related. that's it in a nutshell, really. Chris, why don't we get the store loaded up too, so we can kind of start exploring here. And then, I mean, I guess would you say like your biggest thing here today to receive is to just get some direction as far as like where you could be focusing and where you could be building an audience?
Yeah. I think that's probably the best place to start.
Okay.
Of course, converting is always helpful.
Right. Well, okay, but like you just said, the first thing has to be done, or else the conversions aren't going to be able to happen. So we have to like take it step by step. And isn't that a new Kids on the Block song or something?
It is.
I just watched a Netflix special with that guy that was behind all that. It was kind of
They're from here.
Yeah.
They're from
Step
Boston.
by step, right? Is that it, Chris? Do you remember Backstreet Boys?
That's
New Kids on the Block.
Yeah, that was New Kids on the Block.
New Kids on the Block. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But
there was also a Step by Step. That was a sitcom in the late 80s, early 90s too, right? I think, and Tamara, you said something that I think is really important. You said, I built a store for me, and I'm not sure how many people there are like me. And the answer is there aren't. Right. And this is one of the reasons Scott and I are so passionate about niches or nachos or Frederick Nietzsche, whatever you want to call it. Right. Is because we have a lot of things that we are interested in. And if I put all of the things down on a piece of paper that I was into, you would have whiplash. And what we find in a lot of cases is people do that in their Etsy shop. Right. They're like, oh, I love this and I love this and I love this. And then if somebody comes to their Etsy shop, they're like, cool, I identify with Step by Step. But I don't identify with Snoopy or Charlie Brown, right? Mm-hmm. And so there's a lot of disconnect there. And by using the niche approach, we're saying, hey, take this one thing that you're really into and share that with the world. And then everybody who identifies with that. They don't have to identify with the other 14 things that we identify with to make that connection. So I think that's an important thing. And I know you've heard us rant about niches in the past, so I won't get too far into that. And I know that that's your sticking point, and that's why we're here. But that's the reason why we're so passionate about it. Is it lets us create that one connection point without us having to connect everything.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, cool. So let's just kind of scroll around here. So, okay, so these are just designs, 80s, 90s inspired retro cassette, 80s and 90s roller derby. We've got 90s retro splatter paint. And then we've got the cassette thing there. And then we've got modern abstract, purple abstract. Keep going, Chris. Modern abstract, a lot of abstract.
Yes.
I'm getting some real fresh prints.
Now, what's that? Vegan leather combat boots. Okay.
What did you say? Some real what? Fresh prints?
Some real fresh Prince vibes.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. Let's see. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So it's just a lot of like maybe I don't know. I wouldn't call it streetwear, but I would call it like just like abstract. Like who would be searching for? I guess retro. I'm seeing like retro 80s, 90s, 70s. Like that could be a thing.
Yes, and I do get like that 80s, 90s roller derby skater dress, which is really the one listing in my whole shop that I went all out with the SEO and I really did the research.
Mm-hmm.
That one I get a lot of traffic.
Okay.
And I have sold one, but that's it.
Okay. So that's probably where I would start to then do the research. So how much research did you do to find 3 to 5 products that are selling on a regular basis that are around this niche that we're talking, like the retro, the 80s, 90s, like
that's where honestly, I haven't seen a huge people are selling the retro stuff, but I haven't seen like shops that are selling, 50 a month.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if I'm
maybe the niche isn't as big as you would like to be.
Yeah.
Okay. Right.
Or maybe I haven't gotten the right part of the niche.
Exactly.
People are searching for it.
Mm-hmm. Chris, can we start playing a little bit, do a little product research?
I'm typing in retro over here, and I'm trying to think. Retro, somebody can define this better for me probably. But retro would be like,
you got it reto, but I don't know if it matters. Will Etsy know that it's not retro?
We'll go with that. See, this is why when people say you have to have the exact keyword in, that they're wrong, right? They showed us some retro designs, even though I typed in reto, which is not a thing. But the question that I would have is, what does somebody mean when they type in? Because technically retro could be early 2000s at this point, right? And so do they mean retro as in mid-century modern? Do they mean retro as in 80s and 90s? And so what we would want to look at is, which time period do we want to be in? And then is there a keyword that fits with that? Because I don't think you want to be the greatest hits from the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and today, right? You probably want to pick one of those areas because that's where you're going to find the resonance with you. And if we type in retro and that's where we start, we do see more of, like mid-century modern look to this, maybe, into early 70s. I would say this doesn't, Scott, you can correct me if I'm wrong on this. This doesn't quite get into a lot of the 80s stuff. There's some Pac-Man, but we're not seeing like big hair, leather, and acid wash jeans here, right?
It's more, more decor. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's more of that like mid-century modern color palette, right?
Well, so Chris, do me a favor though. Let's see what's selling. Because I mean, we can look at like what's listed, but what's actually selling here. That's the more important part. So vintage record, that's another thing too, like vintage records. That's a big, big thing. Blind date with a book, personalized iced coffee, custom neon sign, vintage 90s tattoo shirt. Or is that a sweatshirt or something? Like, what is that, Chris?
It's a t-shirt.
T-shirt. Okay. Vintage 90s tattoo sea animal t-shirt, retro ocean nature shirt. 6 months is sold 1,938. I'd want to look into this one. Hey, I wanted to cut in here real quick. If you're wondering what tool we're using to gather all of this information and to really make these important decisions on products, well, the tool is called Everbee. It's the only tool that we personally use for everything Etsy. They have everything from product research, keyword research, and they also offer email marketing now. That tool you can get access to absolutely free when you visit brandcreators.com/Everbee, and you'll get 10 free searches for the month. You can try it out before you invest in this tool. My recommendation is every single Etsy seller should be using this tool. So if you want to try it, go to brandcreators.com/Everbee, and you can go ahead and get access to it immediately. All right, let's get back to the audit. I'd want to look at, okay, what's the keyword? Vintage 90s tattoo sea animal t-shirt. And then I've got retro ocean nature shirt. So yeah, this is something I would want to explore further. Right. And so like Chris went in and he put in retro. And a lot of people, what they'll do is they'll put that in and they'll go, look at all of the stuff for retro. It's a big market. Like everyone's doing, this is great. See, I don't do that. I go right here. I put retro and then I go product sales, sort for the most. And then if it doesn't show me anything, I move on. Because right there, we just discovered that shirt, 90s retro, a tattoo. Like who would have thought maybe you're going to design a tattoo that's popular and put it on a shirt. Like, I don't know. But because Chris just did that one thing, that led us to now start looking. And then I would explore that shop. So this here, what, third floor, something another. But Chris, go back to that one. Yeah. So like this here, only 6 months old. Like only 6 months old. Let's look at the shop. Old school cult. Probably going to have some stuff in demand.
15 sales in the last 24 hours.
Yeah, I'd say that's pretty good. Okay. So let's okay. So here we are. Can we run all the numbers on this entire shop, Chris? Okay. 3 raccoons, vintage something. What's this one? 7 months, 5,588 sales. $31,460 a month and 740 monthly sales. Okay. 3 raccoons, vintage graphic, t-shirts, retro raccoon. So something retro with a raccoon seems to be selling.
Okay.
Right? Like, support your local street cats graphic. Retro, unisex, adult, vintage raccoon. Again, raccoon, something with vintage and raccoons is seeming to work. 1,000 sales, 6 months. This shop's, how old is the shop, Chris? It's kind of
not much like older than that.
It's like 6 months old or something.
17
months. So it's not even 2 years old. Now they've got other stuff here too, which isn't like blockbuster stuff, but they're selling pretty much a lot of stuff in here. Frog's 90 vintage. What's this one got here? There we go. 10 months old, 1,000 sales, $1,883, 51 a month. Views, 95,000. Favorited. So this, I mean, we just stumbled on a little bit of a gold mine here for you just to get ideas. It's not that you're going to copy, but it's like, well, I'm looking at titles. I'm looking at like raccoons and vintage. Like I never would have thought of that. Right? 99 problems and a sweet little treat would solve most of them. So that must be a saying or something. 6 months old, 429. But look at how basic these shirts are. They're retro. It's got like the like a bluish ink to them. Then here, go to the keywords real quick, Chris. Rabbit shirt, gag t-shirt, best friend shirt, silly shirt, meme shirt, funny shirt. So like funny gift for retro and vintage. So top ones are vintage and retro. So yeah, I mean, these aren't even personalized. So if you added a little personalization flair to it, that could also give you some advantage. So what I'm seeing in your shop is you started going down the road of retro.
Yeah.
But it was really like 80s, 90s, maybe a little bit 70s, right? Yeah. But this here is like opening my eyes anyway to like, okay, what else? What can we serve to the retro looking up, market? Like, what are they looking up? And it's looking like this shop is giving us a ton of insight because they've already done it. Chris, where are you at now? You're just at the main page.
I just went to the 90s.
90s?
Yeah, just to see.
Let's run the numbers on this. And let's see what comes back. Okay, so what's that first one? Retro dog
personalized
shirt.
tee.
Yeah.
I would argue, just looking at this thumbnail, this is more 80s than 90s, right? This is like screaming hair metal album cover, but that's just me. 90s aesthetic, right? Debit card stickers.
40th party cups. Okay. 90s stickers.
Mozzarella sticks.
Yeah,
seriously,
it's interesting.
A shirt with mozzarella sticks sells that well. Okay.
307 a month, or 28 a month. 307 total.
Yeah. So this to me wouldn't. Okay. So like this stuff that you're looking at, Chris, it makes me say like, okay, I'd probably focus on the other retro, right? Like this here for 90s isn't as much. Now, does that mean you can't put 90s retro stuff in your shop? No, your shop's all retro.
Hey, real quick, I wanted to give you a little behind the scenes on how these Etsy shop audits even happen. Every single month, Chris Schaefer and I, we meet and we batch record 3 to 4 of these episodes. Then they get edited and they get posted like the one you're watching right now. But what we decided to do is create what we call our Backstage Pass Club. This is where all of our club members, they get to join us on that recording as we're doing it live. The other cool thing is you're able to ask questions and you also can get access to the recordings before they ever air, immediately, raw and unedited. did. You even get all the questions that were asked that you might have missed because, well, maybe you couldn't attend that one live. So if you'd like to be part of our Backstage Pass Club and join our next batch recording session, head on over to brandcreators.com/club or click the link in the description. Now let's get back to the audit.
Right. But to me, the theme is retro. Like that would be like the theme, meaning the niche. Like that's going to be the niche. That person's already clearly, identified that, looking up, people that are looking up vintage, retro raccoon tattoo, whatever that means. I don't know. I'd have to explore. But that's probably going to be the direction that I would probably say would be the direction to go. Unless you, again, like it sounds like to me, like, and correct me if I'm wrong, you enjoy creating.
Yes.
You're an artist.
Yes.
Are you more excited about creating certain types of art, or is it just like you just like creating?
It's a good question. I like to create just in general. There are days when I feel like I really need to paint, but then there are days where I'll sketch something. Like I just did this the other day. My sister gave me an idea. She wanted a pillow with marshmallows on it. And so I sketched something and then I drew it up in Illustrator. And like, that's something I'm really proud of, even though I didn't use a paintbrush. I did that digitally. So I just like to create.
Okay. I think that's fine. I think you can satisfy that. And if you want to do that, but I don't necessarily know that I would the marshmallow thing could turn into a retro vintage thing, right? Like mozzarella sticks did. Who knows? But that necessarily wouldn't be something that you're putting in the shop and you're saying to yourself, that's going to be something that's going to drive a lot of sales. Right. So you almost have to like look at this. And I've said this before. It's like, you have to look at, as an artist, you love creating and you want to get people to come in and see your work, but we need something in the Etsy ecosystem. We need something that's going to drive people in because they're searching for something and it comes on their radar. Right. So you can kind of satisfy both needs here. One, you're obviously doing this on Etsy because you want to create a store and you'd like to make some money. Right. So it's like, if we're going to do that, then we have to then set this thing up so we're getting traffic into the store. And also to create a buyer's list of people that are into this niche. So that's where I would focus on, like we just did, the product research. We did a pretty good job just in a short period of time, but I would go deeper. And then I would start coming up with your own designs off of the designs that are already working, right? Not necessarily the designs, but like the concept. And then emulate like the colors. Like it seems like that cream color is doing really well with like blue ink. Yeah. Right.
I have a ton of ideas that involve, retro color palettes and shapes. And you were showing in the beginning, mid-century modern. I have a bunch of ideas for that. I am a never-ending fount of ideas. It's just, and some ideas get me more excited than others, but I think having some direction of where to go or what to prioritize.
Yeah. And I think that does come down to, like we had said, like if your shop is a store where people that are looking for retro stuff are going to come and they're going to find that stuff and it's going to satisfy that search. It's going to satisfy that need and want. Then that's the place where I would focus.
Right.
The other stuff that you want to do, if you want to put that stuff in other categories, that's fine. But just know that that's almost like you said, you've got like a plethora of ideas. You're like, I just have so many ideas. I just want to create.
Yeah.
It's fine. But you also, at the end of the day, you want to create a little business here.
Absolutely.
Right. So we have to, like, how can we satisfy both? And strategically, we have to think about like creating the products that are going to lead people in. And like I said, just from that little bit of research that we did, it looks like the 90s stuff isn't working as much as just the generic vintage retro, maybe even 70s, 60 or not 60s, 80s or whatever, right? Or just vintage retro with that color palette. Like, I don't know. Haven't done enough research yet.
I am concerned about trying to sell mostly t-shirts because I know that that's.
But you don't have to, because what this person could do is they could take their designs and put it on a blanket, and that blanket could be like on their couch. It could be a pillow. It could be a yard flag. Like if someone's into retro, or they might want to put it up in a game room, right? There's a lot of things that could be done. Now, just because this person's doing t-shirts doesn't mean that that's all that you have to do. But we know it's proven to sell because we just saw the sales numbers. So let's not buck the system here. Like let's go with what's working, but then let's add those other things in. And we just went through this the other day in the Q4 camp call. It's like, how do we take one design and turn it into 5 or 6 different products? You've already done the work,
right?
But we have to start with the product that's selling. That's the key. Anything you want to add to that, Chris?
No, I mean, I think the thing here is we need to figure out which portion of retro we want to fit into, right? And you said you have a lot of things that you're really passionate about. What I would do is say, which one of these makes me the happiest? And then go check the sales numbers, right?
Okay.
Because just designing for that doesn't mean, if we're really into the fresh print style and that's not selling, we can design all day, but that's not going to satisfy the monetary. If you're cool with designing the mid-century modern stuff, and that is going to meet your standards for that, what was it, 5,000 a month, I think. Yeah. If you know that you can get there doing that, then I would focus on designing more of the mid-century modern stuff. There is going to be some overlap, right? You could probably do some of those like blue and tan, like faded white t-shirts in and amongst like the mid-century modern stuff. You probably don't want to add in like the 90s flashy colors on black style in with that stuff, because you're not going to necessarily have that much overlap, right? So you just have to figure out where those shoulders are and say, okay, now I'm going to, design this, and it is still going to be appealing to the same customer. So if you go through that list and say, what is retro, what is vintage? And that's actually, Scott, why I started with the search of retro before running the numbers, just to see what Etsy is calling retro based on what customers mean when they type that.
Right.
Yeah.
And it looks like outside of like t-shirts, because people are saying retro vintage t-shirt, right? And that gets them that white and blue or yellow and blue, tan and blue type of t-shirt look that we were just looking at. If you want to go after retro, cool. That's going to be more on the mid-century modern and less on the 90s, 2000s side of things. And then just design your heart out from there, as long as you're doing a little bit of the research on the front end. So if we can narrow that down and say, this is, if I could design for this all day long, that would make me happy, and then go check the numbers, that's where you want to be.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, as of right now, I have my shop categorized by like clothing, shoes, decor. And I had done this before, should I characterize it by like design, or like, should there be a retro section? Should there be
I think so. I think you should start building out your, how many, Chris, can you pull the shop up one more time? We can take a glance. I definitely think you want someone to come in and you want them to go, oh, this is retro stuff. Cool. Right? Like, not just like right now you're coming in and you might get that sense or that feel, but it really, like, looking at this, like accessories, apparel, bags, dresses, drinkware, home decor.
right.
What if we threw retro in the front of them? Right.
Right.
And then now we're speaking like, and by the way, like, I think the cassette thing is a clever idea. Like, I don't know if someone's searching for that, but I think if someone came in the shop and they saw that, they might be like, just like I did, like, oh, that's cool. That would look really cool up in my game room.
I get the retro 90s high tops and the cassette tape get a lot of views.
Okay.
And by a lot, I mean noticeable amount. I'm not getting a lot of views on anything.
Right. But if you were to like say out of the entire shop, that's getting the most views for you. Yeah. But okay. So Chris, so let's like look at the categories though, real quick. So like I said, like, so we have like new accessories, apparel, bags. Like I would put in there like retro accessories, retro apparel, retro bags, retro dresses. Like I would add the word retro or vintage, right? So I think I would do that. And then like, I think all this stuff could stay, but I would start really trying to build the theme around the stuff that is going to be your drivers.
Okay.
Right. And so, and again, I would pick like 3 to 5 and start there. And then those are going to be the products that are going to bring people in. Now, if you do, okay, Chris, go back to that other shop that we discovered.
Which one?
The one that I think it's like old school something or old school cult or something. Yeah. Which clearly the name identifies that this is for someone that's, going to be selling vintage stuff. Right. And other people that like that vintage stuff. Yeah, there we go. So, and let's look at one of their best sellers, which I think was
this one.
Is it that one right there? Go to go to the other one though. There. Yeah. Like go to the tattoo one. Yeah. The sea animal shirt or whatever. So like I would come up with something. And again, like, so they're selling these at like 50% off and that. And I'm curious, Chris, if you can click in there that we can see if they're actually selling it for that, or if that's just before you select anything. Let's see.
Yeah. So it's 50% off. $15 is their lower end. That's going to be for the small, and then medium goes to 18, large is 18.
Okay. So still pretty inexpensive shirt.
Yeah, and actually in the vintage distressed, which is what they're showing, it starts at 22.
Okay. So it starts.
So they're doing better than the $15.
Right. Okay. Okay. And so for this right here, like again, the mock-up is not that great. Like really isn't. Like, so there's room to improve on this. But I would build off of vintage 90s. Okay. So we said before 90s wasn't going for retro, but vintage is. Like the keyword vintage instead of retro. So even though you're doing retro, and vintage and retro are kind of like, you can play with both of them. I would, again, like even if you're looking at this one design, you create a design like this, you could put that on a throw pillow that would go in a room. You could put that on a sweatshirt. This isn't even being sold on a sweatshirt, right? You could put it on a hoodie. You could probably put this thing on a tapestry that could be hung, like I said, in a game room. And that's all going to happen. Like you could, once you create the design, you put that on 4 or 5 products easily. Right. And even though people aren't searching for the tapestry, they're not searching for the poster, they're not searching for that stuff. They're searching for this, or they're doing a search that's bringing them to this and they're buying it. So what if they came in and they saw yours on a sweatshirt, or if they saw this on, a tapestry, or they come into the shop and they see it on there. It gives you more bites at the apple with something that we already know is proven to sell.
Right. Okay.
So that's where I would spend my time. And that would be my like first plan of attack. Like that would be it. Like I would do that. And all of the other creative stuff that you're like, oh, I got an idea about marshmallows. Like, okay, cool. Like, but you almost have to allow yourself, like, I get that. I get like, 2 hours a week that you're going to give yourself for like creative freedom. And then the other 2 hours is going to be like, I have to create in this a little bit of a box, but it's still creative. So you have fun with it. But you're at least putting your energy into something that has been proven to sell.
Right.
Makes sense?
Yeah, totally.
Okay, cool. All right. So, I don't have anything else, Chris. I think really her big thing moving forward is to we discovered the niche in a sense. From here, it's kind of like building it out. Is there anything else you want to add, Chris, that you'd like to see her do?
I think the biggest thing is funneling that creativity into something we know that is going to sell, right? There's plenty of time to make really cool marshmallows. and do all of those kinds of things. But if we can focus, like you said, Scott, even just half of our time on creating something we know is going to sell, then that's where we want to be. And if we have to, take an hour away from creativity in the short term to come up with that 5 to 10 products that we know are going to work, or 5 to 10 design ideas that when we design these will sell, that is the best place to spend that. So my thought is I would try to find that intersection of what you think you could design for and be passionate about in that vintage retro 4 decades of stuff, right? 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and technically the 2000s. Figure out what makes you the happiest, and then do a little bit of the research to say, is it mid-century modern? Is it more of the late 80s, early 90s stuff? And then if it is, do the sale numbers on Etsy support that, right? And then work backwards to the designs from there.
Now, I'm doing your Q4 training as well. Mm-hmm. How would I translate that into holidays?
So let's use mid-century modern, right? Mid-century modern Christmas, right? Like, think about all of the stereotypes of the 50s, 60s, when it comes to the different things people put up as Christmas decorations, right? It's going to be the same thing. You're going to have retro Christmas, vintage Halloween, right? Retro Halloween.
That would be the search that you're going to be playing with on your research. So like with Q4, the Q4 camp, week 1 was doing product research so we could get yourself set up for basically you're able to have a design done so you can put it on 5 different products. Well, you kind of have to go through and say, okay, like Chris just said, like vintage Christmas, fill in the blank, right? Retro Christmas, fill in the blank. Retro Halloween, fill in the blank. You know what I mean? Like, that's kind of what we're going to be doing leading into a holiday.
Oh, okay. Oh, I like that. Yeah. Merry and bright.
That is nice. Yeah. Look at the flamingo.
That's cute.
Yeah. Right.
Oh, so, love that. I love that mid-century modern Christmas ornament.
Yeah. Yep. So I mean, that's probably where I would spend the time, is doing that research. Once you do that, now you're going to get to do what you really enjoy, which is the creation portion. And then obviously the not so fun stuff is like doing the listing and uploading all this stuff. I mean, my wife tells me that all the time. She's like, oh my gosh, like I wish I could just create all day long and not have to do all that other stuff. But it's part of, putting it, you got to do it once, get it on there. Yeah. But at least if you're focusing on the right niche, then the time that you're spending is going to, hopefully pay off better than before. You're just kind of like, oh, I like this design thing I built. Let's put that up. So at least you have a little bit of a proof of concept, All right. So there's your homework.
I have a lot of it.
I do too. And I think you're going to do great at it. So keep us posted. And if you have any other questions, let us know. But I think you got some homework to do.
I certainly do. I'm excited.
All right. Well, awesome. Well, keep us posted.
All right. Thank you.
So that's a wrap for this Etsy shop audit. But if you want to watch more, well, you can find some more right here. And if you do, well, I'll see you there.